Okay, next we're going to talk about the pelvis. And the pelvis is actually composed of two hemipelvises. So I'm just holding in one half of the pelvis. So this would then be our anterior view. This would be a lateral view then of the pelvis. So the pelvis itself is really composed of three different fused bones coming together. We have our ilium, which is our most superior aspect here, ilium, pubic bone, which becomes our most anterior bone, and our most inferior and posterior bone then is our ischium. That's also known as the bone that we're going to be sitting on most of our lives here. So some key structures that we want to be able to identify. Number one, we have what we consider the body of the ilium. Let's look specifically at the ilium. Now it's this particular area, and if I just switch so that we look inside the cavity here, this area becomes what we refer to as the body of the ilium. Okay, so this also would constitute the body of the ilium. The ilium really forms the pelvic cavity. So if the medial aspect or the internal aspect, here we refer to that as the iliac fossa. On the outside, or from a lateral aspect, we consider this the iliac wing. So we refer to this as the iliac wing. The most superior aspect of the ilium is what we call the iliac crest. So it's this entire structure here that I'm going over. The most anterior aspect has what we call the anterior superior iliac spine. Now just inferior to that we have the anterior inferior iliac spine. So anterior superior, anterior inferior iliac spine. If we continue along the iliac crest, we come to this little ridge or a bump right here, and we consider this the tubercle of the iliac crest. So this has some significance with regards to attachment, particularly of our iliotibial band, which we'll learn really next semester. If we continue along the crest, we get to a prominence here on the posterior aspect. I'm just going to turn this a little bit so we can see. So here's our most posterior aspect of the iliac crest, and we come to the posterior superior iliac spine, and then just inferior to that would be our posterior inferior iliac spine. Okay, now what we can also appreciate is this nice little notch that forms here in the posterior aspect. And when we come down into this particular area, now we're talking about a completely different bony structure, and that would be our ischium, the bone that we sit on here. So here is really a look at the entire ischium. So we consider this particular area here as the body then of the ischium. And then we also have a little arm that extends from the body. And what we call that is our ischial ramus. And that would be coming right in through here. So this area constituting the body, this area constituting the ischial ramus. Now right at the bend point here, and just a little bit superior to that angle, we refer to this particular area as the ischial tuberosity, and you'll be able to appreciate this a little bit better in lab, but this is a real roughened area, and it serves as an attachment for our hamstring musculature. So it's a pretty significant structure that we see, and pretty important area for bony attachment as well. So we cover the ischium, we cover the majority of our ilium. One thing that we can't really appreciate all that well but you'll be able to see them a little bit better in lab, is these little lines that are forming on the wing of the ilium. Okay, can you see these? So we have we could consider this the anterior line right here. We have a posterior line coming right through here, and then an inferior line right here. So we call these the gluteal lines. I'll review this again. Anterior, posterior, and inferior. And those really have some significance with the muscular attachments coming there. Particularly their gluteal musculature. Each one of those are going to fit nicely in between those specific lines. Some other areas that we want to be able to identify, if we turn so that we can see the iliac fossa, we're looking internally at the pelvic crest. There's a couple other areas that we want to identify. This particular area, again, kind of looking like an ear, this is our auricular surface for contact with the sacrum. Alright, so this is going to be the point that articulates with the sacrum. And then we also have this big roughened area. We consider this the iliac tuberosity. This is where our very dense, very strong sacroiliac ligaments are going to be attaching to that specific area. So that often becomes pretty identifiable on your specimens. If we go back to our ischium and we start looking at again another couple bony prominences, this was our posterior superior iliac spine, and if we travel through this area known as the greater sciatic notch, which naturally where our sciatic nerve is going to come out, what we have right in this location, now that we're turning into the ischium, this prominent area is known as the ischial spine, and we're going to have some ligaments that actually attach here and close off this area. So we have this greater sciatic region here, and this notch right below the ischial spine is known as our lesser sciatic notch. Again, there's going to be some important structures that go through each one of those that we'll discuss further throughout the semester and in the next semester as well. This opening that we have here is known as our obturator foramen. And again, we're going to talk about some structures and actually some ligamentous structures and key muscle structures as well that are going to be located in that particular area. So the one bone that we have failed to really discuss when we're talking about the pelvis thus far is the pubic bone. The pubic bone is going to be our most anterior aspect. So we have a body of the pubic bone here, and then we have two arms coming from it. We've got a superior ramus and an inferior ramus.